Welcome back to another episode of Uncut and Uncensored. And here I am no, I'm not. I'm now in Cannes with some other friends of mine, Stephanie and Masood, who you probably know from Miami Housewives. And yes, before you all start screaming at the screen, I will do a podcast with her while I'm here. But anyway, I'm in the bedroom by myself looking at this beautiful view. Sergio's downstairs. We've just had the most wonderful holiday as a family in Saint-Tropez. And, you know, I was thinking about it with all the kids, their friends, with good friends of ours. And I think I want to tell you the best investment I have ever made has been leaving everything. You know, if I think back to the most pivotal, difficult times in my life, they were really difficult, horrible decisions that I made for myself. And I think probably as much as I go on about it, boarding school shaped me into the woman that was able to do that, because I think you are so hyper independent and you're so used to making internalized decisions, even if everybody around you tells you it's the wrong thing to do. In fact, when most people tell me don't do it, that's when I do it, oddly. I don't know why. And it's very true. Don't take advice from people whose life you don't admire. And if you look at the really successful people, a lot of them are alone. And I also don't believe that, you know, you have to be successful, you don't have friends. Absolutely not. I think friendships bring the happiness. There's no point having wealth and success if you don't have people to enjoy it with and you don't have happiness at the end of it. Otherwise, what is the point of money and life? Here I am with friends, and actually I'm going around, like after this, I'm going to Egypt with some other friends, and it's just, I'm having the most wonderful summer of my life, and seeing my kids so happy. But nobody talks about, well, everybody talks about the power of commitment. Nobody talks about the power of sorry, I've got a cold. Everybody talks about the power of commitment, but no one talks about the power of leaving. Okay? The power of choosing yourself over everything else. And as I said, the biggest breakthroughs I've had didn't come from holding on. They've came from knowing when it was time to leave. And I think that is the hardest decision ever, right? One of the biggest things when I started my Divorce Not Dead podcast, you guys all asked me is, how do you know it's over? I mean, you never really know, right? You can thrash things till the end. How do you know when to jump ship? How do you know all of these things? Like I think about Gift Library and where my life would have been now, it had all these things hadn't happened to me, and I was forced to leave Gift Library. You know, there was nothing I could do. It was taken away from me. All options were taken away from me. They shut it down. And when it's so brutal and so forced, it was so hard because it was my life for so long, my identity. You know, I loved going to the office, even though maybe I had lost at the end because of having investors and so much pressure, the love of what I was doing. I would have stayed all the way to make it work because of the people that I employed, the life it gave me and the fun I remembered having. And at the end, when I'd lost all of that, I still would have stayed because I don't like to let people down. I'd never walked away from anything that I didn't feel was salvageable or that it was, you know, going to hurt somebody else other than myself. And I think, you know, that's what's so amazing. So when those options were taken away from me, which I probably wouldn't have pulled the plug myself, now having gone through everything I went through, and it did get harder afterwards, and I was like, I wished for my old life back. Sitting here now, I think it's, how many years ago was that? Maybe 8. I don't want my old life back at all. And if I had not had those options taken away from me, I would have stayed way too long. I would have let it run myself into the ground. I was so close to burnout. I was so close to making everybody else happy except myself. And it doesn't work. You have to know when to let go. You have to know when is the right time, even if you upset a few people on the way, be it marriage, be it relationships, be it friendships, all of the things, be it leaving countries, old versions of yourself. all of these, I've had 9 lives. If I look at the woman I was on Ladies of London, it's actually really funny to watch. I'm softer, I'm kinder, I laugh more, because I'm not so stressed out and like just trying to be the version of myself that I thought run a multi-million-dollar company. And now, although I am running multi-million-dollar companies, I smile through it. I see people look at me sometimes because I make it look easy and think she's just ditzy. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't this and that. Trust me, there is a machine behind everything I do. Everything I do. I make it look easy. That's my superpower, but it's not. I just launched my House of Stanbury last night. Oh my God. It's been so amazing. House of Stanbury launched, less than 24 hours, and I think we've done, tens of thousands of pounds, like overnight. I woke up and I was like, oh my God. And it's not easy, okay? Otherwise, everyone would be doing it. But, I get behind everything I do. Every time I've left something or someone, it's made room for something bigger. What happens is, and I said it before, if you are unhappy or you're stifled, your dreams cannot come to fruition. How can you think big when you feel trapped? Think about that for a moment. How can you expand your thoughts when you're trapped? When you're thinking about a different life? And it's weird because the life that I think I've attracted for myself, I actually started dreaming of at school, at boarding school. And, it's quite an isolating time at boarding school. You're in your teens, you have this like very small room, one bed. It's kind of like a prison cell. And you just sit in it and think about life and what your life would look like. And I remember at the time it was like Risky Business, Cocktail, all those kind of movies, Top Gun. And I pictured my life in the States in a glass house. And now I live in Dubai in a glass house with somebody who loves me that kind of a way. It's very strange. It may not come to you immediately, but I'm telling you, if you allow yourself to go there, it comes. This version of myself I never knew existed. And, it's the version, I'm in Cannes now with no makeup, no hairstyle people. I have beautiful things, but like I'm in dressing gowns with my friends. I couldn't care less how I look. I'm so relaxed. I'm working. I couldn't imagine being able to work and travel like we travel, see the friends and make the friends that we do, have the respect from the friends, have the opportunities that have come to me, and I've learned that most of the most successful people have not become successful because they've stayed and they've stuck it out and they've made an uncomfortable situation comfortable. That doesn't work. They've become successful because they've known exactly when to leave, exactly what to do. And looking at my own life and my own chapters, everything stemmed from me walking away from everything I knew. My friends, it's been funny because I was staying with friends in Saint-Tropez and I've been taking them out to dinner with very, very old English friends of mine who I've known 20, 30 years. And all of them hadn't seen me probably for 3 to 4 years because I've been in Dubai, I got married. My life just went that way. I don't go home to England very much. Nothing more than that. Maybe there was a slight bit of like, that chapter is closed. England's gone. They judged my new marriage. They judged me that I was like done. I'd run away from England and I'd never amount to anything again. And now that I have, of course, everyone's welcoming me back and they're so excited to see us and they want to meet Sergio. But, I took a decision and I left even when things got really hard, And, obviously getting divorced in the middle of losing a business as well was not the ideal thing to do. And I should have just mended my marriage and gone home. I didn't feel that was the right thing to do, because for him and I, we would have been mending it for our children and not for us. We didn't have that kind of friendship that I have now. We didn't talk because I think by then we were so angry and dismissive of each other that everything just triggered ourselves. And, as much as they say you should go to therapy and get it all done, I don't think there's a therapist in the land that would have been able to fix us or should have fixed us, right? I think he has met somebody that is so right for him. She hasn't got Instagram. She goes with the flow. He's her king. And I've met somebody where I'm his queen, and, we're just in the right place. And when you're in the right place. And leaving, we need to change the narrative, isn't about losing. When I have friends that get divorced now, I say, oh, congratulations. Or, if you lose one business, it's okay to lose a business. We should normalize failures. We should. Instead of like going on, she didn't, just because one of my businesses failed doesn't mean every business I'm ever going to do will fail again. And I think that's something people still haven't learned. Why would I invest in her? Why, she didn't do it the first time. Well, that's probably why you should invest in me, frankly, because I didn't do it the last time. I'm going to do it this time and the next time and the next time. And I'm doing it, right? I'm fucking doing it. And I'm doing it against all the odds, against not having a husband 10 years older than me, teaching me the way to fall on into, against, having lost everything and starting again, against, what people want to assume Sergio is. And let me tell you, that man is a fucking genius, okay? He just is. He's really good, and he works all day and night, but he's kind of like Paris Hilton. He's like, let them underestimate me. Why do we end up staying too long? Well, here's the truth. Most people don't stay because they're happy. They stay because they're scared. Think about that. And that's really a big one. Not because you're happy, but because you're scared. Is that really a reason to stay? They're scared to look like they failed, or they're scared that they've invested too much time. How many times have you heard women go, we've been together 11 years, what am I going to do now? I've got, I'm in my 40s. No one's going to want me. I'm just going to stay here. How many times? Then what happens is in their 50s, that's when it all goes tits up because the kids have all gone. And now they really have to face it because somebody else has made the decision for them. It's not their decision anymore. We all tell ourselves maybe it'll get better. Okay, after the third time you've told yourself that, it's not getting better. Let me just make that abundantly clear. If you're wishing to be somewhere else more than 3 times, go. I've spent years building this. It's another one. So what? So the fuck what? If you don't enjoy your business anymore, get out. Simple as that. You can't run something that suffocates you. You can't teach people how to run a business that suffocates you. Take yourself out of it. Put someone else in. I think there's a question that we all ask ourselves, or, say to ourselves, what if we regret staying? Or what if you regret not staying? You can't look at it like that either. Right? You just have to make the decision that's right for you right now. I've watched people stay 20 years in relationships that they've outgrown. And it's okay to outgrow a relationship. You don't need some catastrophic, monumental, awful thing to happen to leave a relationship. You don't. You can simply say we've outgrown each other, and that should be enough. Nobody else's business. I've seen people stay in careers they hate, live in cities that no longer inspire them. And this is a big one. I get a lot of women that come to my retreat that are living places that are still attached to their old lives, and they want new experiences. How are you going to live in a city that's attached to your old life with all your old people and expect a new experience? Answer that. You're not. You never will. I've moved cities countless times. I got up when I was 18, when I broke up with a boyfriend and moved to New York, met a new boyfriend overnight. I've moved to LA and stayed there months at a time. You don't have to move. You can just go wherever you want. You know, I moved to the Middle East 12 years ago. There was nothing like what was here when now it's cool. It wasn't cool then. I've lived in the countryside. I've lived in London. I've lived, whatever I wanted to do, I just did it and threw myself into it. I didn't think about, oh God, I don't know people. Of course you're going to meet people. There's always one person. You're going to meet one person and off you go. And that's when the best things happen to you. Everyone's like, oh, you know everyone. Yeah, I know everyone. Because in any given city, I know people because I made that effort. I've never stayed anywhere I didn't want to be. I really haven't. It took me a longer time to leave my marriage because I had children. But, I think it was inevitable. Everyone really knew it was inevitable. But people really enjoyed just talking about it. Talking about whether we would or wouldn't and like what the fuck was going on. Because people love to talk because whatever's going on, it deflects from what's going in their marriage. Because they can go, whatever's happening to them, mine's worse. People do it. They stay longer than they should because they feel it's harder to leave, and it's not. Once you rip off the Band-Aid and you say, the initial conversation, I'm leaving the country, I'm leaving you, we're not friends anymore. The initial conversation is always the hardest. After that, it's easy. Nobody talks about what everyone asks. Well, what will it cost if I leave? But my view is what's it going to cost if you stay? Every year you stay somewhere longer than it serves you, you're paying with your time. We have one life to make this work, literally. We have one chance to live and leave a mark and to make the roller coaster of life work for you. So you're paying with time by staying in somewhere. You're paying with your energy, your confidence, your creativity, and most of all, the most important thing, peace. Peace. I sleep like a baby these days. And those are the things that you will never, ever, ever be able to get back. Money can come back. Time simply doesn't. That's why I call it a leaving investment, and it's way too expensive. Okay? Way too expensive. I never worried about what my home would look like and what downgrading would be. All these women that stay with men they don't love because they don't want to lose the boat, the plane, the this, the that. Gives a fuck. How much Chanel can you own? How empty can you be? The moment you get to somewhere that you truly own and you feel as your own, you don't even care about these things. You won't care about these things. Because you're investing in your future and not just protecting your past. Let go of the past. The past is gone. Stop thinking about the past. Every major chapter in people's lives starts with a goodbye. So if I look back over my life, I've said goodbye to all the people I lived with from 6 to 18 in school. Everything exciting, it started with a goodbye, not before. So leaving comfort is created growth. Leaving certainty is created opportunity. That's a very powerful one, right? Because I knew exactly what my life when I was married in the big house with the driver, the chef, the big business would look like. I had no idea what this would look like with a 24-year-old who didn't have a career when I met him and where we were going. Leaving people behind who no longer, leaving people behind who no longer believe in you forced me to believe in myself. And that's also extremely powerful. People see you in one version. They don't want to see you in multi-versions. So that started, when I lost my company, or, I went into reality TV, right? They want to see you as this dumb sort of reality. I never brought my businesses onto reality TV for this exact reason. But I did reality TV not because I couldn't do anything else, but because it gave me a platform, right? A platform to hold on to for over 15 years now. I'm not an idiot. I don't care what you see me as on that show, but you know me. I can go anywhere in the world and get recognized now in a very nice way. And I launched a business online last night, and we did a lot of money because you know me, you trust me, and that's from TV, like it or not. So it's a marketing tool for me, not because I can't do anything else. I run major businesses behind the scenes, major ones. But I just don't need to discuss it with all of you guys all the time, because that's not, what people want to hear about all the time. And I believe in myself and actually on this trip, I've been with some very, very successful men and women, and they're all just saying, wow, I'm so proud of you, because they actually see what I do. My new friends are actually willing to see how much I'm accomplishing. It's only the people that want to keep me in that box and make me feel small that have. You can't receive, and I keep saying it, you cannot receive while you grip onto yesterday. You cannot. You have to wake up. Don't know if you can hear that little ding. It's my Shopify going ding, 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 ding. That's so exciting. You have to let go of the past, even if it was bad, even if you've lost everything. Let go. A new day is a new way, right? Remember that. The sunk cost trap. This really is one of the biggest mistakes people make. They say they've already spent 10 years. I've already invested so much money. Exactly. You can't do the same thing and expect a different outcome. If it is not working, let it go. That time's gone. Don't lose another 10 years. Just because yesterday cost you something, the past is a lesson. It's not a life sentence. Let it go. You don't have to do anything anymore. You can literally shut up shop. I had Bust the Label, right? I was selling to all of you guys, and I took it only to the shopping channel. I closed the other channels because I decided to make it exclusive. I can do that. I own the business. I can do whatever I want. I don't owe anyone an explanation. Some of my most expensive lessons became my greatest education, and it's how you choose to use them. You can fail at something and collapse, or you can fail at something and start again and learn the lessons that you learned again along the way. Leaving doesn't mean you failed, and I wish more and more and more people could understand this. Walking away isn't giving up. It's actually, saying, fear is dressed up as loyalty. It's not. You can't be blindly loyal. Real strength is to know when the next chapter has ended and when you have to move on, right? Know when to let go. Know when is the right time. Know, if I look at even the way I dress, the way I walk, the way I talk to people, I'm a different person. I know when to let go of each version of myself. And each version was created because I needed it at that time. Don't wait and stay because you hate it, or, let it overrun you because you've outgrown it. When you outgrow, either pivot, go into something different. And if you look at it, all my little, journey along this life, making things work with my husband, they're all in one sort of space, hospitality and wellness, because you know me and you trust me. Work out what your brand is. Work out what people come to you for. Work out what it is that you do for your following and why they're there. And I think, when you leave any situation, you have to leave yourself too. And you have to be comfortable with that. And this is really the hardest one for other people because, you know, you have to leave the old version of yourself, the version who needs everyone around you approval. Again, going back to the beginning of this podcast, I said my greatest gifts and decisions have come from the ones that I did against everybody's opinion. Everybody. Leaving my marriage, starting a relationship with a 24-year-old, building in Bali. Now everyone's going to Bali, apparently. You know, you have to leave the one that stayed quiet, the one who settles, right? The one that doesn't, you know, shrinks herself. Don't shrink yourself. I used to do that after my court case because I already felt small. I would just shrink myself. Oh, this little thing. No, it's not really a business. And the thing is, you hear it. And I've realized now that, like with everything, when I walk into a room, actually my retreats are fucking successful, right? The women that come are super powerful. Yes, I have a huge business there. I'm building millions and millions of dollars right now of property. So no, I'm not going to shrink myself because you're more comfortable listening to my story when it sounds tiny, because maybe, you know, you're still in the old version of yourself. I hope when I leave, you're inspired to actually get out of bed, get dressed and do something. You know, I'm not going to apologize for dreaming for something bigger. And it's not about money. It's about a journey. I don't give a shit about the money. The money is a byproduct. It's the journey. Every day I wake up somewhere different with a different opportunity, a different idea. And it's so exciting. I'm in a different country. You know, I'm not going to become small to make you happy anymore. If people need you to be small, they're not your people. Growth isn't about becoming someone totally new. It's about growing into the new version of yourself. It's about only leaving behind who you no longer are, right? Which is weak, small, unconfident, unsure, needing approval. That's all. What has travel taught me? Well, one of the reasons I love traveling so much is because the airport reminds me that nobody needs to stay somewhere forever. You know, you board a plane, you wake up somewhere else. You take off, you land somewhere new. You know, imagine if that's the way we lived, that we could just wake up and be somewhere else. How amazing that would be. You know, you don't sit in departures and, you know, be afraid of the next destination or afraid it won't be perfect, because otherwise we'd never leave, would we? We'd never go on holiday. But life has always worked out. So you may not love the destination you got to, but you can change it. So think about your life like travel. Like you get there, if you don't like it, you come back or you go somewhere else. Why do we always have to think about life as like, well, if I get there, I'm stuck there for the rest of my life? Not true. And that's for relationships and friendships and destinations. Think about it like that. When you get to a friendship, then you've got to the end of it. You can simply walk away. You get to a destination, you don't like the hotel, you can leave and book another one. Why do we not think of it, travel the same way as we think about our lives? Sometimes your next destination only exists when you're willing to leave the last one. You know, every holiday I go on, sometimes I have such an amazing time. I, cry and I want to leave. I'm so sad to leave. And I think I'm just going to sit there because this was so wonderful. But then you get to the next one and you have a wonderful time too. And a new experience with new people. So you've got to remember to actually see the signs. It's time to leave. Maybe you're listening to this today and wondering, if this is about you, because, all of these kind of things trigger something in each of us. So here are the few signs to look for. If you're constantly exhausted and not energized, if you've stopped growing and you feel stuck, if you're staying because of guilt and not love, that's a very big one. If you're staying because of guilt and not love. If you're more afraid of change than excited by your future. gosh. If it feels like you're surviving instead of living, then maybe it's time, not necessarily to leave right now, tomorrow, but to start asking better questions to yourself and start looking deep, deep down. Is this going to change for me? Am I meant to be here? And when it happened to me, you know, when I finally made the decision, I remember sitting very clearly with a girlfriend in one of the most beautiful places in the world and suddenly realizing I'm not meant to be here. I didn't know where I was meant to be, but it wasn't there. And now I've never felt so at home in my own skin, in my own place, and accepted for who I am. Exactly who I am. No makeup, gray hair, glamorous or not, doing my thing, accepted by my friends. So, I don't know what you're holding on to today, but maybe it's a relationship, it could be a job, maybe it's a dream that no longer fits the person you've become, or maybe it's just the old version of yourself that you've built and you don't know how to let go of. But remember this, the biggest opportunities in my life never arrived while I was clinging to the past, ever. They arrived after I found the courage to let go. And I've said this a million times, let go, let go, let go. Because every ending makes space for a new beginning. Remember that. Leaving isn't about losing. It's the greatest investment you can make in yourself. And I've always told you the most expensive thing I ever bought myself was freedom and peace. So if today's episode resonates with you, please do share it with your friends. I love to hear it. And follow Uncut and Uncensored so you never miss an episode. Mwah. And I really hope this helps anyone that needed to hear it today. Thank you for listening.